Hey everybody, and welcome back to 7CZ. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today we are switching gears a little bit and we are moving over to a new pathway and starting the first habitat in the Africa section, which is going to be a mixed species habitat called the African watering hole. And I know that's not very original, but I just really want to make one, so that's what I'm going to do. My idea for the habitat is to build it in the shape of the continent, which in retrospect is not really going to matter because the guests won't be able to see it from their perspective. But that's the idea that popped into my head, so that's what I'm going with. So, first, I need to figure out which African animals can live together in the same habitat, and then how big do I need to make this shared space? Already, after checking just the African elephant requirements, I need to make my barrier much, much bigger. So, back to the drawing board with this Africa shaped perimeter. Having never made a mixed species habitat before, I have no idea if I have to add the space requirements together or if the same space counts for all animals, but I am hoping it is the latter because this habitat already needs to be massive just for the elephants. Being that this is the African watering hole, I want the water to be a focal point, so I am starting with that. I still haven't quite figured out the flatten to terrace tool, so I am just using the push tool at 60% and then the flatten tool to make it a bit bigger, and then finally the smooth tool to smooth out the shoreline. Then I paint it all up nice and pretty, but I forget to change the setting to sampled instead of selected when I add the water, and it just repaints it all to sand. I want to raise the ground in the back of the habitat to help the guests have a better view of the animals when they are back there. One thing that I am worried about with such a huge habitat is that the animals will be hard to see. I do plan to put a lot of enrichment items near the guest viewing areas to hopefully encourage the animals to hang out there a bit more often. Time to move on to the shelters. These are going to be more like sunshades than enclosed shelters, and they are going to need to be fairly tall for the elephants. But beyond that, I don't have a plan. So I put on the African filter and find these African sunshade supports, and then try a few different pieces for the roof, but settle on these bamboo panels. For this video, I am going to leave in the entire process of making this sunshade just to show how long it takes sometimes and how many different things I try before settling on something. I'm still learning about all of the different pieces in the game, so sometimes it takes me a really long time to just look through everything and try out different pieces to find something that I like for what I am building. So while this part is playing, I will share a little bit about the animals that are going into this habitat. So I settled on the elephant, of course, and the giraffe, zebra, and ostrich. The African savanna elephant is the largest species of elephant and the largest terrestrial animal on Earth. It is currently endangered due to poaching for the illegal wildlife trade. Despite the fact that there has been a global ban on the international sale of elephant ivory since 1990, tens of thousands of elephants are killed every year for their ivory. And savanna elephants are critical in maintaining the savanna by reducing the tree density and spreading seeds. Okay, moving on to a few fun facts about elephants. An elephant trunk has over 40,000 individual muscles, compared to a human body that has about 600 in total. And you probably already know that they use their trunks to suck up water for drinking. And you might also know that they use their trunks to throw mud on their skin for a layer of sun protection. But did you know that they use their trunks as a snorkel when they are swimming? The next animal is the giraffe, which is the tallest animal in the world. Their tongues are 45 centimeters long, which is nearly half a meter, which is just insane. And they can grasp foliage and they can delicately pick leaves off of branches with them. The giraffe spots are like human fingerprints. No two animals have exactly the same pattern. Also, their skin secretes chemicals that are a parasite repellent, and it gives the giraffe a very distinct smell. Giraffes need very little sleep, even as little as 30 minutes a day. And in the wild, they usually get this by taking quick cat naps while standing up, just in case there's a threat from a predator. In captivity, giraffes will sleep for much longer periods, even up to 6 hours a day. And in zoos, you will even see them laying down to sleep, just like they do in the game, because there are no threats from predators. Giraffes are considered endangered due to deforestation and the increase in agricultural land conversion. The next species in this habitat is the plains zebra. Zebras have striping patterns that are unique to the individual and heritable. There are many theories about the zebra stripes. Some believe that they confuse predators so that they cannot distinguish an individual from the herd when it's fleeing. Others think that they deter biting flies. Another suggestion is that they protect against the sun. But my favorite hypothesis is that they are used for social recognition. So zebras can find their friends by recognizing their different stripe patterns. Another fun fact: zebras tiptoe. They actually walk on one toe that is protected by a hoof. If you've seen zebras in the wild or on wildlife shows or in zoos, you can see that they like to stick together in herds. But did you know that a zebra herd is also called a dazzle? The plain zebra is currently listed as near threatened. However, the other two species of zebras are listed as endangered and vulnerable. The last animal in this habitat is the ostrich. The ostrich is a flightless bird that can grow up to 9 feet tall and weigh up to 320 pounds. They also have the largest eyes of any land animal, with a diameter of 2 inches, which is the size of a billiard ball. Also, the ostrich egg is the largest in the world. It's equivalent to about 24 chicken eggs. Despite the common expression, ostriches don't actually stick their heads in the sand, although they do eat sand and pebbles to help digest their food. And in some places, people race ostriches. Jockeys ride on the bird's back and try to hold on, with the ostrich running at speeds of up to 30 miles per hour. For the plants in this habitat, I'm using the blackthorn bush, the dog rose bush, elephant grass, and drin grass. And I want to keep it kind of simple, and I want to have it looking green enough that it doesn't look barren, but it is the African savanna, so I don't want to overdo it. I also need to consider how much of this elephant grass I'm putting into the habitat because it is not traversable. So it is going to take away from the area requirement for the habitat for the animals. And however, the drin grass is traversable, so I can put as much of that as I want in, and it's not going to affect the space. There is a really great video out there called How to Save Habitat Space with Traversable Foliage by Sparrow838. And she has gone through and checked all of the plants in the game to see whether they are traversable or not, and then organize them by biome and then also by continent. And actually put them all into a spreadsheet so you can search alphabetically for the plant that you want to use as well. And she has shared that in the details of her video. So if you haven't checked it out, it is a super helpful video. Thank you so much, Sparrow, for putting that together and for sharing it with everybody. Rocks, however, take up space, and I don't think there's anything we can do about that. So, unfortunately, whatever rocks you decide to put into your habitat, you do need to consider how much space those are taking up. So, here I wanted to put some mud around the shoreline of the watering hole for elephants because I know that they love to stomp around and splash and roll and play in the mud. I don't know if the other animals will use the mud bath, but I really hope that they do because I just think it's so cute. Like in my otter habitat, I just love watching the otters roll around in the mud. So I'm really hoping that the giraffes will do that. The zebras, I have no idea. I don't think the ostriches will. I don't know, I feel like rolling in the mud is maybe not a behavior that birds would want to engage in and mess up all of their plumage, but I'm hoping that the other animals do. So next I want to add in some branches around the edge of the watering hole just to make it look a little bit more natural and break up the shoreline a bit more. And then I want to add in a few more sunshades around the kind of in the open areas of the habitat. And finally, I will go in and add a bunch more drin grass and also a few reeds and things like that around the perimeter just to cover up some of that concrete that we see. And finally, I'll add in some of the enrichment items and feeding trays, feeding stations, watering fountains. And we are coming up on the 10-minute mark for the speed build portion of this habitat. And I'm realizing that this is taking forever because it is just such a massive habitat. So I think what I'm going to do is just skip ahead to the tour. And I'm just really excited to show you the finished habitat and all of the animals in this habitat. So let's just jump ahead. Welcome to the African watering hole. So the first thing our guests are going to see when they enter this section of the zoo is this enormous sign, and I made this continent of Africa with the art pieces, circles and rectangles, arches, and I just rotated them and just fit them together until they resembled the continent of Africa. And it took me a really, really long time, but I'm pretty happy with the way that it turned out, so I think it was worth it. I just framed it off with some log pieces, and then in this section of the zoo, we're going to have the bark pathways and all of these signs for our habitats. So for the Africa sign, for the African habitat sign, I just started with this Africa sign, this editable sign as the backdrop, and looked for some African decor pieces just to build on top of that. So we've got an Africa shop fascia and some African columns. This little bit of grass or thatch is part of the shop fascia, so I just looked for something to extend that down. So I've got here this thatch roof ridge decoration. It extends that grass or thatch down to the ground, and then the fascia didn't quite cover the edges of the information board, so I just added a few log pieces in here. And then in behind we have some hardware and some brackets and some log posts to hold up the signs. So our first sign is our ostrich. We also have our zebra. Over here we have our elephant. And then we get our first peek into our habitat. So we have a lot going on right now. I guess it's feeding time. So we've got our 2 adult elephants here, and I think we have 2 or 3 adult giraffes actually, and we have lots of babies. We have our elephant calf right there, our giraffe baby over here. We have quite a few zebras, and let's see, quite a few, there's a little baby ostrich. Quite a few ostriches as well. These little guys are so cute. So I did put a lot of feeding trays and enrichment items all here around the guest viewing areas, and it really does work to bring the animals up here. And they do spend quite a bit of time up here. They do also spend quite a bit of time back here, just kind of getting out of the sun and lounging in the shade or sleeping underneath the shade structures back here. But I am pretty happy with how much time they spend up here. So we've got some zebras here. Do we have any foals? Yes. Oh, look, here is our little baby elephant going for a swim and using her trunk as a snorkel. All right, if we continue up this way, we have our giraffe sign. And then we have a few concessions. So I have this raised viewing area so we can get a really good look at our giraffes. Directly behind the giraffe feeding station, there are a few concession shops and some picnic tables. Over to the left, we have washrooms And then we can actually continue on that way, and there is another viewing area of our habitat. The view from this side is actually really pretty. Not very many guests come over to this side of the habitat yet because the park is not developed beyond this point, but so most people are viewing from the other side of the habitat or the giraffe feeding platform. But I'm actually partial to this view, just I think because the mountains in the background are so beautiful. This giant tree is so gorgeous. And here is, oh, our little baby elephant calf. Oh, look at it. We're getting a demonstration of the dirt throwing onto the back of the elephant. And our little baby calf taking a rest. That's it for the tour for today. I have a few more shots of the animals to leave you with. And thanks so much for watching the video. And if you want to continue on this journey with me, up next will be the Nile monitor. Bye for now.